Shabbat Shalom. And I'm looking here to open up the Shabbat Shalom. So again, good Shabbos. I'm speaking to you actually from Chicago, where I have been all week attending the Parliament of World Religions. This week, I have been among Jews, Protestant Christians, Catholics, Christian Orthodox, Muslims, Mormons, Sikhs, Hindus, Jains, Buddhists, Wiccans, Unitarians, Zoroastrians, humanists, pagans, Native Americans, Yoruba, and members of indigenous African and Latin American traditions. Among the 6,000 attendees of this conference, there have been people dressed in black robes, saffron robes, kimonos, garments that I don't even know what they are called, festooned with turbans or feathers or any style of hat. There are people from all over the Americas, Europe, Africa, the Near East, the Middle East, and the Far East. I don't know if you've heard of the Parliament of World Religions. It is an idea that goes back to 1893. In 1893, in conjunction with the Chicago World's Fair, which itself was a commemoration of the events of 1493, that was called the Columbian Exhibition. So alongside the Chicago World's Fair, a group of religious leaders or maybe world religious scholars brought together a Parliament of World Religions. And I have to learn more yet about who it was who did this and how they came up with the idea. But one particular individual, Swami Vivekananda in India, heard about it in Mumbai and decided he needed to attend, and he made his way to America and eventually found a way, I won't say to crash the party, but he found his way somehow to people who had enough influence to get him admitted, and he became perhaps the keynote speaker of the whole thing. I don't know if you can see this. This is a copy of his address or his addresses to the Parliament at that time, and that's a portrait of him. It became a major milestone in the development of interfaith dialogue, of conversations among religions. That's 1893. But there was not another parliament. There was not another convening like that until 1993. It was 100 years later. And because it was 100 years later, another convening in Chicago was undertaken. In the lead up to the 1993 convening of the Parliament, organizers developed a lengthy initial statement that was called Towards a Global Ethic. And the statement was adopted as an initial declaration of the Parliament of World Religions. And when we arrived, we each got a copy of this as well. The idea behind that declaration was taken in part from the thinking of Hans Kung, an ecumenical theologian out of the Catholic tradition. And this aspect of his thinking could be summarized as: there will be no peace among the nations of the world without peace among the religions of the world. No peace among the religions of the world without dialogue between the religions of the world. And no dialogue between the religions of the world without global ethical standards. So the document, which is called Towards a Global Ethic, is meant to start to provide a basis for dialogue, a global ethic, which could become a basis for dialogue, which is essential for peace among the religions, which is essential for peace among the nations. Maybe not enough, but it's still essential. So the idea is to develop this dialogue as an opening towards setting conditions that might lead towards greater world peace. And what happens at this conference, at this parliament, it's not only heady thought. Dialogue between religions proceeds at the parliament, and between convenings of the gatherings in the form of art and music and dance, shared acts of service, religious ritual, shared teaching, and so much more, all as a multimodal translation of the global ethic, this global ethic, into various forms of expression. Among other things, just as an example, a major feature of this gathering, every day of the 5-day gathering, a langar was sponsored by the Sikhs, okay? The Sikhs are a religious tradition from India, which came about beginning 500 years ago in the midst of the confrontation between Islam and Hinduism. So Sikhism comes out of there. And a langar is a free kitchen. Each day at this gathering, there was a langar, so thousands of people flowed into a tent set up just outside of the building. People took off their shoes, covered their heads, sat in lines on the floor, except those who could not for physical reasons, and then they sat at chairs, on chairs at tables. Everyone was given a plate, and people came around serving an entirely vegetarian meal. Rice and various Indian sauces of lentils, dal, cheese and vegetables, fried bread, salad, yogurt, water, and mango lassas. I mean, it was like, the food was like an Indian restaurant. But actually, this was an act of devotion on the part of those doing the serving. As in, they were feeding another person, or feeding thousands of them. 150 members of the Sikh community traveled from the United Kingdom to Chicago to run this langar. During the lunch, which was served over the course of 2.5 hours, there are musicians playing instruments and chanting from their scriptures in the Punjabi language. But this time they also allowed for a Jewish group to be chanting for half an hour in Hebrew. In addition to these acts of service and celebration and learning, there was a considerable emphasis this time on advocacy, on defending democracy, on defending human rights, on defending religious freedom for all, on defending the environment and the climate. All of this as an expression of religious life and devotion. As I've said before, advocacy and prayer are very much alike. Advocacy and prayer. They both are speaking hope out into the universe. Advocacy and prayer, speaking hope out into the universe. There was considerable emphasis on global interfaith cooperation to confront the huge problems before all of humankind. The statement on a global ethic demands that fundamentally every human being must be treated humanely. And towards that end, it insists upon 5 specific overarching commitments. And there's the commitment to a culture of nonviolence and respect for life, a culture of solidarity with each other and a just economic order, a culture of tolerance and a life of truthfulness, a culture of equal rights and partnership between men and women, and a culture of sustainability and care for the earth. I note how appropriate it is, however unintentional, perhaps, that this parliament convened over the time of Rosh Hashanah, just before Rosh Hashanah, and convened over the time that we moved into Elul, the time when we begin to prepare for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And specifically, I note how appropriate it is that all of these issues were put front and center into the world this week as we read Parshat Shoftim, which essentially opens with the words tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. This parsha opens Shoftim v'shotrim titen lecha b'chol sha'arecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha. Shoftim, judges and officers, that you judges and officers shall you make in all your gates, which the Lord your God gives you, tribe by tribe, and they shall adjudicate among the people with righteous judgment. You shall not wrest judgment. That's W-R-E-S-T. You shall not steal judgment. You shall not respect. You shall not give deference to persons, neither shall you take a gift. For a gift blinds the eyes of the wise. You do not take a bribe, in other words. And a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and perverts the words of the righteous. It says you shall not respect persons. That is, you shall not favor the poor. You shall not favor the rich. You shall not bend justice to accommodate injustice. But justice shall you pursue, that you may live and inherit the land which the Lord your God gives you. This parsha is about justice. It is about justice in the courts. That's tzedek, tzedek tirdof, justice, justice you shall pursue. It is about justice in the economy. We find in this parsha, do not remove a neighbor's landmark, which is not to steal that by which they make a living, in this case, the land. It's about justice in the political system. And this parsha is about compassion for each human being and creature. What all of this, the parsha, the moving into Rosh Hashanah, and even this gathering of the Parliament of Religions, which does not happen every year, by the way. It happened in Chicago in 1993, and then it's happened since then in South Africa, in Barcelona, in Toronto, in Salt Lake City, a few other places. Last time was virtual, but it's returned to Chicago. And what all of this means together for us and for Temple Beth Shalom is that although we, Temple Beth Shalom, we are a small community, the values that underline everything we are and everything we do are part of a stream of thinking and of change, which is much larger than all of us. The values that we stand for, even in our little gathering in Mechanicsburg, the values that we stand for are to be found in every language, and in every religious tradition, on every continent in the world. Those values are part of an emerging ethic which has grown by orders of magnitude since the first Parliament of Religions in 1893. It's that long-term perspective we need to see and keep in mind. There are millions and millions of others like us living and working in their own small communities, supporting the values that we adhere to and that we and what we do are based upon. We are part of something much bigger than us. So let's all keep that in mind. Shabbat Shalom.